Welcome to the first in a new series, where we will be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Harry Potter, the franchise that got kids back into reading, by reviewing the video game spin-offs. I have had better plans, though in all seriousness, the Harry Potter video games are pretty fascinating. It's a series with radical shifts in tone, mechanics, genre, and target audience over more than a decade, despite more or less taking place in the same location and starring the same characters. Even more fascinating is that, with some exceptions, you can tell that these games are made by fans of the books with passion for the source material. Even the bad games are failures as adaptations or as entertaining games, rather than a failure to understand what made the books and films so special to millions of people around the world. There's one problem, of course. This series is huge. As far as unique entries go, versions of each game that are suitable candidates for individual analysis as opposed to just ports of the same game to another platform, there are 23 games just based on the movies released between 2001 and 2011. That's not counting Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup and its version for Game Boy Advance, the LEGO Harry Potter games, their handheld versions, Wonderbook Book of Spells, Wonderbook Book of Potions, Harry Potter for Kinect, and, if we're being really generous, I guess we could consider Pottermore a web-based video game too. Of course, we won't be looking at every version of every game. I'm not completely crazy, only partially. Instead, I've chosen one game for each film, plus Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup, for a total of 9 games, which I think is a nice selection without going overboard. So, let's get started with the GameCube version of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. When creating a movie tie-in game, there are, generally speaking, 2 different ways to approach adapting the movie's story. The first and most common way is to treat the story as window dressing, presenting it in cutscenes interspersed with whatever gameplay the designers want. The second option is to make the player feel like they're playing the movie, recreating action scenes from the film within the levels, and telling a more accurate version of the film's story. The Harry Potter video games generally strike a compromise between these 2 styles, with varying degrees of success. In the case of the GameCube version of Philosopher's Stone, the way it adapts the story is the first of many failings. The way the story is presented is incredibly fragmented, with pieces missing, allusions made to events that never occur, and dangerous assumptions made about how much the audience is familiar with the world and characters. This particular point is a cardinal sin in my book, even as someone who is quite familiar with the source material. Skipping character development or proper introductions because you know the audience knows the characters is a sloppy, lazy writing shortcut. It's like listening to a popular song, except the only lyrics are those 2 lines from the chorus that everybody knows. While it's quite tempting to rip apart the story piece by piece, this review is going to be long enough as it is. So instead, I'm going to focus on a few specific examples. The most obvious is a scene from the book where Harry and Ron read about a break-in at the wizard bank, Gringotts. The most critical point of that scene is that the vault being robbed was the same one that Hagrid had emptied while getting Harry his spending money for school. Not only do Harry and Hagrid never go to Gringotts at all in the game, but Harry talks about the event as though he did. There are other head-scratching choices that are less of a handicap to understanding the plot, such as the decision to include Peeves the Poltergeist, who was cut from the films as being unnecessary, then doing absolutely nothing with him, not even as a boss fight. Overall, while there are some good narrative choices, the adaptation fails to properly convert the story of either the book or film into a satisfactory action-adventure game.
People only die in proper duels. You know, with real wizards.
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone manages to mess up even its simple presentation. There are some very noticeable framerate issues, with the game frequently dipping below 30 frames per second, despite running natively at 60. I also noticed quite a few blatantly unfinished parts of the game, such as the goblins with the unfinished textures I pointed out earlier, or one especially bad cutscene where Ron teleports out of the room in full view of the camera. The nasty bugs, improper lighting, bad sound mixing, and low-quality textures make the game look substandard even for a GameCube launch title, let alone a game from 2003.
Liver?
For reasons I don't have time to explain here, the GameCube version of Philosopher's Stone came out 1 year after the game based on Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. As such, the games share a similar engine, though Philosopher's Stone was made by a different developer, and it shows. The base gameplay between the two is the same. Hogwarts is treated as a giant overworld where Harry learns new spells and classes that resemble dungeons from The Legend of Zelda. The game also allows Harry to fly around Hogwarts on the Nimbus 2000, which is interesting at first, though becomes tedious once the barren Hogwarts landscape wears out its welcome. It quickly becomes clear that the gameplay in Philosopher's Stone is far less polished. Casting spells feels clunky, and several spells, such as Diffindo and Spongify, must be charged before use. The game tries to adapt the Zelda-style lock-on combat, but the camera never compensates to focus on the enemy Harry is targeting, leading to many situations where Harry will be blindingly firing spells at an enemy the player cannot see. The puzzles in the various dungeons range from too easy to unintentionally difficult due to bad design. I ended up having to use a guide for the last half of the game because the level design did an exceptionally poor job of guiding the player where to go. There are also stealth sections which are terribly designed, with randomly spawning guards that make strategy pointless. I ended up blindingly running past them again and again until the AI decided to act stupidly. Needless to say, by the time I got to the end boss fight against Professor Quirrell, I was more relieved than happy to see my playthrough end.
Kill the boy! Kill the boy!
I normally don't like being so blunt in my reviews, but the GameCube version of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is garbage. It looks bad, it plays even worse, and is somehow technically inferior to the Chamber of Secrets despite coming out 1 year later. There is no reason to buy this game, as the PlayStation and PC versions, while flawed, do a far more amiable job of capturing the magic of Hogwarts. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone gets a 1 out of 5, and good riddance. So, have you played Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone? And if so, what did you think of it? Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And if you're feeling really generous, why not contribute to my Patreon page? Join me next time for another review. And to get you excited for that, I've got a magic trick prepared for you. I'm gonna pull a rabbit out of this hat. Oh. Hey, how you doing, little buddy? Pretty cute. What are you doing? It's not very funny. Okay. Okay, listen. That's not funny anymore. You can put down the golf club. Oh God, help me!
Teleport!